please request Murali for the last panel for TiECON Vizag. In his true style, I think he'll take it the way that's most entertaining, in fact.
May I request my co-panelists to come on board, Sonal, Sylvia, Devi, and Madhavi. Once you are here, I'll do the proper introduction. Madhavi, you can come here. Why? No, the only reason I'm asking her to come closer is she's the organizer. No, I'll get a better photographs. I know. So, good afternoon, everyone. Again, as Madhavi and everyone said, this is the last panel for the TiECON. And so I'll start. I think there are a couple of fans. So I'll what I do normally. అద్దాల కప్పను చూసి వెనక్కి తగ్గలేదు, ఆకాశమే హద్దు అని తమకు తాము చెప్పుకున్నారు, కొండలను చీల్చిన నీరులా అడ్డంకులు దాటి ముందుకు సాగారు, ఒంటరిగా గదిలో కూర్చున్నప్పుడు వెలుతురు తాముగా మారారు, తల్లి ధైర్యం, కూతురి కల, నాయకురాలి నిశ్చయం ఒకటే ఈ వేదికపై నిలిచిన నలుగురు రేపటి తరానికి దారి చూపే దీపాలు. But we are in the land of Telugu, so it's my privilege. We live in a time of extraordinary contradictions. India has produced women's head of states, central bank deputies, space mission directors, and Olympic champions. And yet, women hold fewer than 20% of board seats in India's listed companies, and less than 5% of CEO positions in Fortune 500 globally are held by women. The glass ceiling is not a myth, it is a lived reality, made of unconscious bias, structural barriers, unequal access to capital and networks, social expectations that haven't kept pace with ambition. But today's panel tells a very, very different story. It is absolute loss, I must say, whoever is from Geetham are not listening to this panel. The Geetham students should have been here. This hall should have been filled with this, because I truly, personally believe we have with us 4 remarkable women who didn't wait for the ceiling to disappear. They found ways to break through it, work around it, and build entirely new rooms without one. Between them, they represent entrepreneurship, investment banking, corporate leadership, family business succession, and community building. They span industries as different as technology, real estate, heavy manufacturing, and diversity advocacy. They each carry a distinct and valuable perspective on what it actually takes, not in theory, but in practice, to lead at the highest levels. This is not a conversation about victimhood. It is a conversation about strategy, resilience, and what the next generation of women leaders and the organizations that want to attract them need to do differently. And for many of you who have heard me, I'm repeating myself. I'm Murali Bukkapatnam, and it is absolute privilege to moderate this conversation. I have Ms. Madhavi Vuppalapati, the CEO of Cemetrix, founder and chairperson of Prithvi Information Systems. Madhavi founded Prithvi Information Solutions in 1998 and became one of the only female CEOs among the top 50 Indian IT and telecom services companies. Madhavi, truly honored. I have Devi Shankar, Head of Real Assets, Data Center, CBRE India. Devi has more than 21 years of experience across investment banking and business strategy. And prior to CBRE, built and scaled the data center investment banking business at Anarock. From inception, closing two of India's largest platform deals valued at 1 and 1.7 billion respectively. Welcome, Devi. I have Sylvia Smetana, founder, Divershefy Club and GoPro. Sylvia launched Divershefy in 2018 after repeatedly finding herself as the only woman in the room in board and C-suite settings, and decided to build a platform for women to help other women succeed at the highest level. Welcome, Sylvia. And this is the final one, which I'm a little afraid of saying. Sonal Sarda, she is the director for Sarda Metal and Alloys Limited. Sonal is an electronic engineer, right? I mean, who would have thought that a ferroalloys director is an electronic engineer? And not only electronics engineer, she has a master's in telecommunication from the Ivy League, University of Pennsylvania. She worked with Microsoft in Seattle, then transitioned into the family business at Sarda Metal and Alloys, where she oversees operations in sourcing and procurement for their power plant and ferroalloys plant. Welcome, Sarda. And ladies and gentlemen, I think I have the absolute privilege of, having this panel address. So Madhavi, first and foremost to you. You have built Prithvi from scratch in 1998, a time when women-led tech companies in India were nearly unheard of. What was the hardest part of establishing credibility early on, and what would you do differently today?
Actually, I sort of cued me on that question before. I honestly didn't feel like I was, I said that before as well. I never felt like I was alone, or I felt out of place in a lot of these settings. When I started the company, or maybe you're just young and stupid, and there's no, you're just a kid that wants to do a lot, and I never saw it as anything as a hurdle. But I think one of the things that I was always surrounded by men. Whether if I went to CMU, and now I keep telling my daughter, right? There were this SPB concert that happened, and I went with 13 boys in the middle of winter from Pittsburgh to Columbus to see this. And then I still have pictures of, with 13. If my daughter called me and said, I'm going to this concert in the middle of the night, I'll be like, no, you're not going, right? So I think that is, I was very fearless, and I even now I feel like I'm very fearless, and that's one thing that will sort of make you not see the hurdles, and I won't do anything differently. And my advice to most women is that, right? Like we talked about this, women don't have this. It is on you. You have to take the onus to break out of those barriers, right? I think that's the. I won't do anything differently. And sometimes the fearlessness actually caused me a lot of problems. So
We all know that.
So I would advise, cautious fearlessness is what I would advise most people. But yeah, I won't do anything differently.
No, thank you, Madhavi. So Sonal, I'm coming to you next. You went from Microsoft in Seattle, right? And in overseeing operations and a ferroalloy plant in Andhra Pradesh. That's quite a pivot for you, right? How did you navigate the shift from a global tech career to a traditional industry family business? And what is the most surprising fact of that pivot?
So, yes, like he said, it was a huge pivot. I was not ready for it. In fact, when I went into it, I questioned myself, is this something I can even deliver on? I went inside that role with my own glass ceiling, questioning my own worth. And I've been a good student all while. And when I was making the transition into the role, I just decided to become a student all over again. I said, I'll go in, I'll ask questions, and what I don't understand, I'll research by myself. So that's what I did for the first 10 years in the company. I was there in every meeting asking any kind of question, and what I would not understand, I would go back home and Google. Over a period of time, what really surprised me was it doesn't matter what field you are in, it is what competency you bring to your role. I was a program manager at Microsoft, and here I became a project manager. And I knew I was good at it. I had to stop doubting myself. So I said, I'm a great project manager. I can line up tasks. I can foresee risks. I can get departments to work with each other. Let me start with that. Let me start with my strengths. And that's where I started. It took me 10 years to establish myself, but eventually they started seeing the value of what project management is. Traditionally, heavy metal industries are not great on project management. They just wing it. And there was a lot of resistance on why do we need to do this? But when they started seeing the impact, that's when they accepted me into their folds. And that's when I also realized I need to hold on to my voice. I should not change who I am depending on where I am. I need to give what I have. And that's how I manage the change.
Wow, that's very powerful. Sylvia, I'm coming to you next. So Divershefy was born out of very personal observation for you. Being the only woman in the room too many times, at what moment did you shift from frustration to action, right? And what gave you the confidence that a structured platform was the answer?
So thank you for Ty for inviting me. It's been quite an interesting journey. So I've been 30 plus years of experience, Europe, US, and India. And I first really recognized the lack of women when I started to be in boardroom and had a C-level role. And first in that role, there was one other woman with me, but then I moved to consulting role and was working with many different boards and many different CE levels. And I was the only woman in the room again and again. So that's when I started seeing, oh, something's going on here. So I came to Germany after that and then moved to India 9 years ago. And when I came to India, I gave up the other consulting assignments and just focused on finding out what can we do to bring more women into those roles, because obviously it was lacking. Obviously, I did research, I did, looked at different organizations on the ground, what's happening. But I found there wasn't enough happening to really actually bring women into those roles. There were some who were advocating for it, but they were not actually doing the placement, or they were not actually really helping them to get there. They were just talking about the lack of it. So I found we actually need to do something to do the actual placement and actually bring them into those roles. There's obviously there's a whole pipeline that we need to address as well, which we also started doing. But even when you get women as far as being able to be on a board from their experience level, even then it's so hard to get women into those roles.
Right.
So I've talked with over 2,000 women in the last 8 years. Almost all of them told me the same story. The only woman in the room, happy to pay it forward and help other women to get there faster. So that's how this idea of community came up on the Divershefy Club as an organization to bring women together who are willing to pay it forward. We have many mentors who are willing to help, also startups, not just corporate leaders, but also startups, to actually advise them and give them support. So anybody, especially any woman founder, we're willing to help. And we actually have an event on March 24th, where we talk about advisory boards and best practices, and also matching women founders with advisory board members. So that is something, for example, we are actively doing to do that. My own personal journey really brought me to the point where I felt I can actually do something about this. Why? Because I have the experience in 3 different continents, and I do feel we can actually do something. And Mr. Funny Mohan had said before, I think one of the, yes, thank you. You had brought up something before which I feel is very, very important. Women aspiring for board or C-level roles only even happens when they have role models they can look up to. Right. And the lack of role models is a very big issue, because if you come to a company and you are, say, 10 years into your career, you come to join a company, and there's no woman in the board, and there's no woman at the C-level, How confident will you be that you will be the one that will break that ceiling? That's why Divershefy, we are starting at the top. We're bringing board level women in, we're bringing C-level women in order to change that. The company still needs to start growing internal women to rise up to that level, but you can't do that from one day to another. But you can hire an independent woman director, or you can hire a C-level woman to make that first shift. And that's signaling of the company to say, yes, we are ready to actually have women at these levels, is incredibly important for the women in that organization to even aspire to come to that level.
That's a very powerful statement. Yeah. So giving out the signals is very, very important, right? So Devi, I'm coming to you. You built an entire data center investment vertical from the ground up at Anarok, right? In a field as capital heavy and relationship driven as real estate investments, banking. How did you establish yourself as the go-to expert, and what role did gender play in that journey?
So thank you, Murali, and thank you everyone. So we just heard Madhavi, Sonal, and Sylvia speak very relevant stuff. I could personally go back and relate to small stories, what in all of what they said. So to be honest, as far as my last 6 years journey, which was in Anarok, where I started off the
By the
data
way,
center.
Devi, I'm very hurt. You didn't mention my name.
You
I
didn't
wrote
give a
such a poem where such a strong.
Sorry, that
Don't you
wasn't-
agree? I mean, this is gender discrimination.
That is still registering.
This, but anyway, yeah, I know. I'm not also on the C-level board yet. So sorry, continue, Devi.
That's still registering in my mind. It was in Telugu.
Next time.
So, so see, honestly, like what Madhavi said, I'll say the same thing. To be honest, data center, of course, is a very male-dominated industry. So is real estate, and like all of them, I've also been in boardrooms where I'm the only woman. But that didn't really, for me, it didn't feel any different. For me, it's just my way of going about my work, right? So the fact that there are few women or hardly any women did not really matter to me so much. And the way I went about doing it was, there's one thing I do want to mention over here, that the only bias that's always there is that when you're sitting with a client, if you're a man, the client would just assume that, okay, this guy is an expert. But when it's a woman, you have to speak up. You have to demonstrate your knowledge. And that confidence comes only after that stage. So you generally don't start at the same level. It's not a level playing field generally. So for me, I've always had one strategy, being very thorough on my domain, like knowing my subject matter really well. That's like the most like non-negotiable aspect for me. And that's what I did. Like for me, data centers was very new. Fortunately, I started my career with one transaction, which I closed, and that kind of helped me deep dive into that. And on the back of that, like literally I went about cold calling everyone in the industry. Like Kalyan is a cold call of mine, in fact. So everyone in the industry is just a cold call. Like people took time to warm up, but eventually everyone opened their doors. I just needed that door opening to, talk to them and let them hear what my experience is. So it was more about that. Like I've never felt a gender bias to be there. But yeah, unlike, the men, like it's never a level playing field, like I said. In fact, one person from the data center industry had told me this, that I can never pat you on the back, right? Which I can do to a man. So that is always going to be there. He's a friend of mine. He's a friend of everybody in the industry. But like, that's a fact. Like, you can't really pat a woman, and you can't have that kind of rapport. But you, again, like she said, it's the exact same thing. You find your own way to make friends. You have your own type of conversations. You meet for coffee. I don't meet for drinks. I'll meet for coffee and, have a casual conversation. But that's how you find your own way, actually, to be honest.
No, true. I think what you said about the knowledge, I think we as men are little biased souls. I mean, I have no shame in agreeing. But I think, I think the presumption is that, women, like when they have to come up the, at a higher level of But the good thing is that the moment that knowledge comes through, women, I mean, the men do make down. We are a very submissive souls. We try to project we are a overpowering, we are not. That is the honest. So that's the reason like many husbands have a lot of bruises on their body, but they just cover it up with nice jackets. So, Devi, hold on to it. I'm coming back to you again. See, the real assets and the infrastructure are still heavily male dominated. Right? You recognize that fact. But as now you lead that vertical at CBRE, what does it take for a woman not to just enter but define those spaces? This is a very different environment when you have to define a particular vertical. So what does it take for if there are so many girls here, maybe they don't look at real estate as a space to enter. But if they do choose that, it's a very lucrative industry. How can they define that space?
So I'll just give a small story, very similar to something on the lines of what Sylvia mentioned. So when I spent about 7 years in the Big Four, where it's a healthy mix. It's a consulting world. You have women and men, and it's a very democratic environment. When I had to make the jump to JLL, like I kind of realized that now I'm getting very into a different zone. And that was a decision-making call for me. But the person who interviewed me was a woman. And so I thought, if she can do it, I can do it. And so I took a leap of faith, which is exactly Sylvia's point that women need role models. I honestly believe that women inspire women. Like when I see somebody at the top who is a woman, who's doing, working a certain way, like I get inspired. I may not get inspired by a man because there's so many of them, right? And you of course learn from men. I've learned all my life from men. But when you see a woman doing something, you feel a sense of pride and inspiration. And that was my reason for getting into JLL and then the journey from there. So I think that is one very big point, that you need to have enough women leaders to attract more female talent. And today, like my first priority when I hire is always, I tell my HR, I want to hire women. And that's gender bias. But I mean,
you should hire people for their talent. This is reverse discrimination.
No, I hire people for the talent, but my shortlisting criteria is women.
Sorry, I'm going to Sylvia now. Sorry, your time is up. I control the mic. No, actually.
So that's my story of why I came into real estate. And see, I've had my instances where clients have not been receptive to me. Like I remember one meeting that I went to, the client even refused to give me his visiting card. And he was talking to my junior, who was a guy. And I just sat through the meeting. I kept quiet throughout the meeting, let my junior run the meeting. And he only kept looking at my junior. And then we came out and my junior was like, I was feeling so embarrassed. I said, it's okay, so long as he was comfortable with you.
Yeah.
But I never spoke to that client later because it's reciprocal, right? So when the client respects you, you respect the client. So you choose your clients. But that's like 1% of my story, like 99% of my clients have been very nice and respectful to me. So, so overall, I don't think that, like again, coming back to Madhavi's point, I don't think that, honestly, like even in a male gender heavy industry, I don't think that you feel uncomfortable or anything. Yeah, it's always nicer to have more women. I really believe that, because then there's a sense of camaraderie. You make friendships easily. There's somebody to kind of, share your experiences better. So all that really helps in making the atmosphere more informal. But having said that, from an opportunity standpoint, I don't think that it's been, there's any bias at all.
On that point, I'm going to ask Sonal the question. I don't know if it's a really camaraderie, but I'll go to Sylvia. Sylvia, you've been doing this platform and you have various programs for women leaders with 5 to 10 years, 10 to 20 and 20 plus years of experience, right? So in your experience, at which career stage do women face the sharpest drop off in their advancement, and why is that?
So every stage has their own challenges, but the really sharpest point is actually between 5 to 10 years, simply because that's when the women get children, They drop out of the workforce for several years. And when they come back, that's really the hardest, very, very hardest, because they have lost ground. They have to re-enter and they have to catch up with all the development of that area. So the dropping out and coming back, I think, is definitely the most career damaging part.
So to Sonal's point, like if you are playing to your strength, whatever
Yes.
the strength is, that strength is not declining because, you have taken a break or a career break because of, growing a family or something. But will that still be a challenge at the drop off? Because that particular skill you still possess, right?
Yeah, but most of us are subject matter experts, right? So data centers, I mean, in 5 years, how much has changed in data centers?
Okay.
What you knew 5 years ago is not what you know today. So in many industries, there's a lot, and as you know, there's a lot changing faster in almost any industry today, right? So women, if they're smart, obviously, even if they stay home, they keep up with the trends and
Correct.
learn and maybe use the time at home to study and keep themselves up to date. But many women don't. And unfortunately, this is a really, really hard time for women to come back. There are organizations like Herky and others who are helping specifically women to re-enter into the workforce, but it won't make up for the 5 years that they have lost being at home. That being said, this is a very specific challenge. There's a different challenge when you talk about 15 to 20 years, because that's when really the women are going into very senior level roles, and this is where it really thins out. And part of the reason is because women are willing to step up to that plate, but there's only so many roles, so they are overlooked many times for those higher level roles. But also, what we have seen is that when, say, 20 plus years of experience, at some point women just say, I had enough. They actually don't want to fight the system anymore. Okay, they have been in business for 20 years, they've been fighting for 20 years. Some say they have not been fighting, but some are lucky and have incredible supporters all through the way. And I know women who told me they have never had to fight the glass ceiling. They actually have experienced mentors from start one, male mentors, and they have been supported, which is fantastic. But it's a smaller percentage. The larger share is actually women who had to put up with a lot to get to the point where they were able to work for 20 years in an industry, rise up the ranks, and still then they have to fight to get to these roles that they have actually earned with their own merit. And that's where I feel this is where Divershefy is most kind of trying to help, to really get those women the visibility and the credibility and the placement to actually be seen as a thought leader in the field and to give them the rightful place that they have actually earned.
No, fair enough. I will come back to you, but I do want you to think, is this the, what I would call as a parallax error because of the number of people, like, in male working, right? You do see more people and you don't have a proper ratio measurement as opposed to the fewer women, and you don't see that apparent people at the C level or at the decision-making level. And is that the reason it is very apparent to the naked eye that women having that challenges? I do recognize, I'm absolutely empathetic about the fact that women do get discriminated, women do have challenges, and when they do raise families, right? But is it also the small, slightest visibility error, right, from a density point of more men workforce, hence you see more men in these positions, decision making, as vis-a-vis compared to the less women and the less decision making? You don't need to answer it right now. I just want you to think. I'll come back to you. Okay. Now I'll go to Sonal. Sonal, there are two questions which I wanted to come to you. One little, maybe a complex or this thing, I just want to put some fire. Devi was saying that, right? I mean, women need more idols. But I feel that women don't look at a fellow woman as a idol, but they see as a competition, right? Oh, she has done it. She's wearing a Prada. Now I should go and get a Gucci, right? She's carrying Arme, and now I'll, carry something else. Is that the same psychological mindset? Or now she is becoming a C-suite leader. I need to become and say, why can't I be the C-suite leader? Is that it? Or is it truly that me taking another woman as a role model and say that, I want to be that leader. If that is the case, if that were to be the case, why are there not many Indira Gandhis in the world? Why are there not many Smriti Iranis in the world, right? Why are there not many Indra Nuis in the world, right? If I were to take a role. So what is it? So I'm asking you a very, a question which can be considered as a, putting that fire.
So you're asking me, are women inspired or are women working?
However, you want to simplify that, but it is not that simple.
You have
simple
heard
question.
monkey see, monkey do, right?
Come again?
You've heard monkey see,
Yes,
monkey do,
yes.
right? So it's not just a woman thing alone. Now, how we see it, now this is such a, you brought up a memory while you were talking about it. When I joined my job first time at Microsoft, I was young. There was a manager I had, her name is Eden Dumphy. She was 4 levels above me. And for some reason, she was an epitome of everything I wanted to be, not just as a manager, but personally. Like she had a personality, she would play, she'd take care of her family, she was doing everything right. I'm telling you, after 20 years, I still follow her career. She's a VP at Microsoft today.
Fantastic.
I still message her. Not for one moment I felt I want to do it because she did it. I felt, you know what, great job.
She has
and I
done
want to
it.
try.
Yeah. But how many Sonals are like there?
I would, you know what, surprisingly, a lot.
Okay, fantastic.
Surprisingly,
great. Give a round of applause for that, guys. I mean, if there are many. Yes.
I would like to respond to that because Divershefy is built on the ethos of paying it forward, which means the women who are joining Divershefy are all there to support other women to rise. And believe me, there's a lot more women who support other women than there are those who don't.
Now, I'm not saying that women don't support. My question is not about not supporting. The question is this. So, as you say, pay it forward, there is a seeker and a giver. Is the seeker going to the giver because I want the giver to be my role model, or because the giver has achieved it, I too can achieve?
Yeah, but these are both the same in a certain...
It's not. It's not the same. There's a competition. One is my idealism. One as a Maryada Purushottama Rama, I take Rama as my idol and I want to cross the Ayodhya, the Rama Setu, and achieve and find my Sita. That is my idealism, right? And now I want to go and compete in the Olympics because someone else can do it. So that is a competition, right? Two different things. So which is what, from a woman's psychology, which is why I wanted to ask. And so again, I'm just trying to stir up the pot a little bit here.
I'm pretty sure that there's a larger number of women who are positively...
Do we have the data? Sure is a hypothetical question. No, so that, see that...
Do we have the data for men? Do we have the data for men?
No. Guys. Sorry. No. Moderator role is not to provide data. It is a panelist. Why do you think I get to enjoy sitting next to Madhavi? Only to ask questions. So Devi, you wanted to say something, but no, wait. I still have not finished Sonal's question. Yes, go ahead, Devi.
So what you're saying can be true, but that's mostly
That's
mostly among peers. So I know,
Yes,
for example,
thank God.
that
Thank you, Devi. You agreed. Yes. Okay, go ahead.
like I've had like in your early years, you mature after a point. After a point, it doesn't happen. But in your early years, when you see some peers of yours of your same level who get like maybe a transaction which you feel you should have got. We have made comments like, oh, that's form over substance. I say I'm substance over form and she's form over substance. So we make that comment. And I also want to bring out here that I'm not saying that, women inspire women in a very blanket way, because the worst bosses I've had have been women bosses, to be honest. At one point in time, I decided that if I'm going to get a woman boss, I'm not going to take up that offer. It's literally how that's been. And all the male bosses that I've had have been so encouraging and have been so instrumental in motivating me to do better. So I really don't differentiate, from that perspective. But
Guys,
I
I'll
still,
collect money later on.
but but I still believe that women inspire women because
No,
I
thank you,
need
Devi.
that role model
No,
to put myself into a position.
honestly, my reason to start that, no, I want to go back to Sonal, I'm not done yet, is to get that point across that not all men are bad, not all women are goddesses, right? And by the way, I had the privilege of having 3 women bosses and an absolutely wonderful bosses I had. And my career has been really good because of them today, right? I mean, I've learned a lot, like the way Sonal, you were telling about your thing. I mean, whether it is Joanne Lofthouse of Siebel, Angie Primo, right? I mean, Crystal Gilbert. I mean, absolutely wonderful bosses I had, right? I'll elaborate later on. Sonal, coming back to the real question, you got into your family and you said that you had to, 10 years, you had to be at that table asking for that question, each and everything related to project management, right? It is a tough job, right? And it is in a non-traditional, atmosphere. How did you, motivate yourself on a daily basis to show up, and ensure that you earn your place, right? Today, you are the director. That means I'm pretty sure that you earned your place there. It is not someone who has given you that. How did you do that? I want you to be as honest so that I met 21, 22-year-old girls here last night. I want them to take inspiration from 4 of you, and I want them to build that 100 crore companies which I specified in the morning. That's my honest zeal here to get, these questions to you guys.
So I'll split that answer into 2. When you're young, you do not realize the responsibilities that come with being a woman. Okay, at that time, I wanted to be the leader of a company. I wanted to have my own company. I wanted to drive growth. And at that time, I felt like she said, I could. There was no fear. There was no doubt that I would achieve it. It was something that would drive me. And that was the drive that was with me till I had my children. And the moment you have your children, you realize that your role as a caregiver becomes very important. And it's not easy because at that time you struggle with, and I'll talk specifically to the women here, all the women in the audience, I'll talk to you. You really struggle. It's not easy to pick between a child who is not well and a deliverable that you have breaks your heart. To that extent, I will very honestly say, in traditional industries at least, maybe not in the IT sector, maybe somewhat not in the finance sector, but in traditional industries, you will struggle. The only way you get through it is you put your mind to it. You go lesser on your sleep hours. You work hard. I'm not going to mince words. You have to work hard. So I would sit with my baby in my lap and a laptop in front of me. And this was pre-corona time, so we had no Zoom meetings happening. I would put my phone on a speaker, listen to it, and I had privilege, okay? I will also say I had privilege of doing that because I was part of a family-owned business. I'm hoping by the time you all enter the workforce, the environment will be more understanding of the fact that women do genuinely have responsibilities that are more than what men face. And I hope as part of being women in leadership, we work really hard and you see that transition and you see that support from people who, like us, who have the position today and the control today to make the difference. So I'm not saying it's easy. You'll have to put your head to it and you will have to work hard every day. But trust me when I say this, this is not coming from ego. I know if you give 50% of your attention, 50% of your hard work, you will match anybody out there. Because the drive you have to succeed, honestly, men don't have that because they have generations ahead of them who have succeeded. So they have an entire platter and a platter of people who are, I know I can do it. We do not have that.
Sonal, thank you very much. And I truly reciprocate that feeling because Yes, men do not have the drive. I know my mom, if not for my mom, the way she worked hard, whether in our bar and restaurant business, which my dad put it up, or whether it's aluminum utensils where she did. If not for mom, I don't think I would have even gone into the US, right? I mean, she bet on a candidate. I was not a class student. I was always, sitting in the last bench. I was always outstanding. I was standing outside the class most of the time. But she bet on it. It is her who took the risk. So women do take risks. So, and thank you for it.
I'll actually just complete that conversation, and this is where it comes back to women driving women. When I was leaving for my studies, I was crying at the airport, calling up my dad saying, I don't want to leave you guys and go so far away. And my dad was on the verge of saying, come back. My mom was the one, I won't let you enter the house if you come back. You better go and you come back with a degree. So women do drive women.
Absolutely. Thank you,
I
Sonal.
wanted to just,
So-
exactly the same thing happened to me. I was crying. I didn't want to go. My dad said, it's okay, Bangar Talli, come back. And my mom is like, I'm not going to let you.
See,
and-
men are so gullible.
No, and sorry, I have to talk about the guilt, right? I mean, this whole field.
You answered that as part of your second question, because it's a very relevant question. Madhavi, you got laid off 3 times, right? And you made a turning point in your career, and that drove you towards entrepreneurship, right? It's not a very easy thing. How do you counsel those young girls sitting in that corner? There are 5 or 6 people, right? How do you counsel them to, take that setbacks and say, hey, don't worry about those setbacks. There is another way in which you can take that detour as a catalyst to what you can become, right? So now you can combine both the answers, and let's go. Let's motivate them.
Yeah, so I think this, I feel, now entrepreneurship is such a fad in India, especially in India. I think, entrepreneur is actually looked upon as somebody that's doing something great for the nation, for the greater good, and all of that. But when when I called my parents and I said I'm starting a company in the US, they were like, paycheck in that, that wasn't something that you would do,
Common.
especially as a, I mean, even with having amazingly progressive parents and who never discriminated between me and my brother, but it was still a stupid decision, so to speak, right? I think Kalyan, you said that, but yesterday in your conversation. But if you believe in that, and then you think what you're doing is right, and you, just that belief in yourself and wanting to do it, and the clarity of, I mean, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was a given from the time I was in my 5th grade, I think. And that was losing jobs was an easy, okay, that this is an anecdote I have to share. So I would work for PPG, Pittsburgh Plates and Glasses, I think, the PPG. That was the company I used to work for. And I had a car, and parking, if you lived in the US, parking in downtown is a very expensive proposition. Yeah. So people would park outside on a bridge, and then they walk into the offices. I would go late every day, and then I had like 10 minutes, so I would park my car right next to the CEO's car, and then I would go up. And my parking bills were like 500. I mean, very. So the CEO saw this, Geo Prism park next to his car every single day, and he actually asked the security guy, "Whose car is this?" And then one day, me and him came out at the same time, and he had a all hands meeting, and I was as usual late, and I saw him walk. So I said, okay, how do I make this easy, because he's seeing me come late, right? So I pick up a conversation with him, and then I go to the all hands meeting. He sees me, and then he realizes I'm parking the car next to his car. And that part of being, I feel like it's fearlessness, right? So then he calls me into his office, and that's when my idea of consulting business started. He said, these guys are looking, but long story short, I started my consulting business at that time. So I think having that want, and I thought this was a golden opportunity to take that up. And then a few months later, everybody got laid off. Then that's how that was the seed for my consulting career. But the idea is, wanting to do it. I think that's the bottom line, and it doesn't have to be everybody. It can be a you know, not everybody has to do it. You just have to believe that you can do it, and it has to be like the untrodden path or whatever.
So there are two things which I learned.
Yeah.
One is the belief, and the second thing is always park your car next to the CEO. So then you do get the consulting.
No, but I just want to finish this whole guilt thing, right? And as a sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
But I started seeing that you're different after I had my kids. Me and my husband used to live in two different places. At that time, I was at my peak of my career, where I would fly to Brazil, I'll fly to different countries on a monthly basis. My husband was in a different town. I had to take my child every single place. I had to take my nanny every single place. And it never occurred to me that I could actually leave my child with my husband. It never occurred to me. I had to nurse her, I had to pump, like these are all the things we don't talk about. But, you have to pump your milk, you have to feed your child, you leave it with your nanny. In Philippines, I remember I just left her with somebody that I didn't know, and she could have been kidnapped, these are the risks you take. And never at one point my husband said, I'll keep her, nor I felt like I had to leave her with the husband. And not that it wasn't.
Seems to be a bad husband.
He's a great husband. My daughter is right here. No, but
Hey, he never volunteered to take.
no, but it's the guilt. You think the child is yours, and you just drag them everywhere. My daughter is right here, handing out.
I know, 9th grade. Wave your hand, Nana.
Uma.
No, Sonal, don't worry. She knows my wife. And the feeling is very mutual. So,
Yeah. I take pictures of him with pretty women and send it to him.
she's very mean, friend. Shravya, how are we doing on the time?
No, I think he's wanting me to sit next to him just because of that. He's like, oh, only Madhavi.
Oh, thank you.
No, but anyway, I think a long-winded story. But the idea is, please believe in yourself. It doesn't have to be just men that believe in themselves. We can also do it. Until a child is born, you're just free to do whatever you want. But I think that's the sorry, long.
No. So, Devi, I'm coming to you. I should have guessed this, but by looking at you, how you dress up and all that stuff, you constructed a fashion label, right? What does that entrepreneurship along that demanding career of yours, and especially a male-dominated field, that taught you, and how do you manage the bandwidth? How do you manage the identity? The entire myth of this work-life balance, right? I mean, you talk to any consultant, they'll talk about this work-life balance. And I just 10 minutes back, Sonal said there's no such thing as a work-life balance. As long as you decide to work harder, 50% harder than men, you will succeed, right? I mean, while there is some truth to it, but managing the entrepreneurship, and especially in a very demanding industry as fashion, and creating that, private equity, the deal making is very difficult. How did you do it?
To be honest, I went slow later on because I couldn't do it. That's the bare fact. Because so entrepreneurship it didn't start out of entrepreneurship. It started just for my love for fashion and my passion to have a fashion label of my own. It started with that. Eventually, it got me so motivated that, I went deeper and deeper into it. And I realized that it was really stretching me. And like Sonal said, literally like, you go to office, work, you come back home in the evenings, you're sitting on that. Weekends, you're sitting on, doing stuff. And it was very, very draining. So yes, in the last 6 months, I really slowed it down. But just in terms of the whole experience, I think it was such a good learning for me. Even though like I stretched myself, it was such a good learning. But one thing that I realized is that a lot of things change, and we heard Sylvia talk of different age experience buckets. After 40s, a lot of things changes for women, and that's also a bare fact that you have a lot of health issues, and you don't have the same, the energy levels that you have. You kind of have to moderate that given a lot of health issues that you have. So, so that's a reality check that happens. And you realize that you have to slow down. You cannot run at the same pace. So for me, work-life balance is extremely important. Like I've realized that while I started the fashion label more because I wanted something right-brained. You know, I felt I was too left-brained in my job. I wanted something right-brained. So, you know, designing and all that was giving me a lot of like fulfillment. But it sucked me into a different, you know, like zone, which became too hectic. And I realized that, you know, let me keep my creative thing up in a different way, which is not really so draining. And I think it's each person's priority. Like for me, I realized that work-life balance is absolutely important. I even today I go to office by 8:30. I leave office by 4:30. If I have to do calls, I come home and do calls, you know. But I ensure that at least my timings are fixed. My dinner is early. I sleep early. I wake up early. So you know, I ensure that my routine is in place. So all that has become very, very important. I think somewhere down the line, you know, that also kind of becomes a priority for everyone. In fact, fitness and mental health and everything, you know, is now
No,
a
thank you.
priority.
No, no.
So
So I
that
think
is a bare fact. In fact, it's not easy to do
to manage.
entrepreneurship along with a
No,
job.
I wanted to tell these young girls out there that it's okay to decide to give up in pursuit of excellence in something.
Yeah.
When you're pursuing that excellence, it's okay to forego some other things. You cannot ride
And
two
it's very
horses.
hard, Murali, because
Yeah. So.
our expectations of ourselves is so high that giving up is also not easy.
Absolutely, I
So
agree.
it's a very tough decision to do that.
So as a follow-on, Sylvia, I'm coming to you. You married a handsome Telugu boy, right? I know I met him last night, right? You. Oh, hey, yeah, handsome. So Telugu boys are in general handsome. Um, and you operate both in Vizag and Europe, right? Two different ecosystems, a matured European Western thought process from an economic standpoint of view, and now you operate in a very burgeoning, upcoming entrepreneurial ecosystem like that of India and that too of Andhra Pradesh. What do you see the two ecosystems offer? How do they differ? What are the lessons one can learn, and how do you, impart those lessons to the young entrepreneurs here today at Vizag?
Okay, so Europe and India are two very different countries. I mean, Europe is not a country, but European countries are very different to India. India is its whole, it's a huge market, right? I mean, 1.4 billion people is like way more than Europe has all put together.
Right.
So what I appreciate about the European business systems is the predictability to some degree. I mean, obviously now with oil crisis and everything is something you can't predict, but there's a certain kind of consistency, predictability, law works, you know, business contracts work, you know what you get when you sign up for something. So there's a consistency there that makes certain things easier because you don't have to worry all the time about things changing constantly. At the same time, that also creates a certain laziness in the system. Right. There's very little entrepreneurship. New ideas are not coming very often in Europe. You see that much more in the US. US is much more creative and innovative. European systems are much more designed to keep and stay and continue. So they're not really designed to encourage new ideas or new enterprises. But they have a lot of Mittelstand, which is the mid-range kind of companies who are very consistent, who have been there, have 150 years and so on, right? So we're trying to bring those actually to India because they have technology, they have certain kind of experience that we could use in India. What I appreciate about the Indian system is the fact that there is such an entrepreneurial spirit and so much is possible. And there's such a large market, right? There's so many ideas that come to fruition, and TiE is an expression of that, you know, the possibility, the endless possibility, it seems like, right?
Right.
So that is something that's very unique, I think, in India, much more than even America. Yes, you know, Silicon Valley is its own animal, but the rest of America is not really like that, from my experience.
So you do have a lot of hope for India and especially for the Andhra Pradesh.
Yes, absolutely.
From the possibilities point.
I mean, look what's happening with AI and the data centers and everything, but also, you know, we're trying to bring European companies to Andhra or specifically to Vizag also to set up roots here. because I do feel that is a up and coming area. There's a lot happening here.
No, our Shama's dream will come true because he was saying in the afternoon, more and more Europeans should come to Vizag.
Yes,
Because
I
this is the
agree.
other he was saying.
I absolutely agree, and we are here to help to do that.
We'll make that happen while you are there. Shravya, with your permission, I have one last question for Sonal, and then we'll wrap it up. Maybe we'll take one or two questions from the audience, with your permission again. Sonal, you are in a very heavy industry, manufacturing thing. It is my personal belief that only MSMEs are the backbones of the Indian economy. If the MSMEs are strong, India as a economic power, it will raise, right? Otherwise, all this Vikasit Bharat and all those things will remain as a sloganeering. I mean, Startup India, even though I'm part of this great entrepreneurship organization, Startup India means nothing if the MSMEs are not given the. So you are in a very, very unique woman in a different heavy industry, right? What do you tell to those 10, 15 young women leaders in the audience today? What should they do to get into that kind of MSME sectors?
Okay, first, again, two parts. I don't know, I have this habit of splitting things. That's my thing. I always split problems. To all the women over here, this has been my pet peeve. 20 years ago, when I was graduating, we were having this conversation, women in leadership. 20 years later, we are having this conversation. Right now, I feel the ceiling is made by us, okay? Today, the world appreciates talent. They want output. If you can show that, they couldn't care less if you are a female or a male. So, show it to them. You'll just have to speak louder, scream, shout, but your talent will eventually come through. So the ceiling currently, biggest ceiling that we have is us women saying, oh, maybe I can't do this, or maybe this is a male-dominated industry, okay? Like he said, MSME is the future, heavy metal, yes, it's great to be here, it's energizing to be here, but MSMEs are the future. And here's a very interesting statistic for you guys. That's where Indian women already rule. The number of Indian women, percentage-wise, in corporates as opposed to MSME is already high. You guys are ruling the roost. All you need to do is take the next step and be vocal about it, be strong about it. Have the drive. Do not make excuses. Never make excuses. I do agree there's a lot of policy shift that has to come through. I'm hoping people like us today who have the privilege of being on the stage will work, people who have been the speakers today will work hard to make that more possible for you guys. That is our responsibility and we'll work towards it, but your responsibility is not to give up.
Thank you, Sonal. One question from audience. Maybe Swapnama, I'll give you the opportunity. Swapna, you want to ask a question? First opportunity for you. Where is the question coming from? Please, introduce yourself. The question has to be very directed, pointed to one particular person. No gyan, only a question.
Hi Murali, my name is Subini. I am the founder of Think Travel, a startup I'll be pitching later. My question is a single question, but I really wish all 5 of you answer this shortly. So, we've spoken about, I relate to all the struggles that you've been talking about and totally connect with you. The question is, you've been confused, felt guilt, the guilt which has been, given to you by the society. So now, when you go through those confused moments, the struggle moment, the frustrating moments, to put yourself together, to take advice, whom do you go to? Or do you go to someone? Do you get help? Or do you deal with yourself at different stages of your life, probably starting from 20, 30, 40, whatever your age is? I would also want Mr. Murali also to answer it, understand
I will definitely answer. That's a deep and a personal question for me. I will answer that. But first, Sylvia, 30 seconds. Answer that. Who do you go to?
Yes, I would absolutely recommend to have more than one mentor, and one to be a woman and one to be a man at least. Better 2 women and 1 man. Because the women who have gone through this confusion, being a mother, not knowing how to prioritize, all these things, can really, really help you.
But who do you personally go to?
Who I personally go to? To my husband.
Your husband. Great answer. Sonal.
So, like every daughter, I go to my dad.
Fantastic.
But I'll tell you one thing. It is a lost art today. Go back to literature. The poems that have been written and how they can drive you. If you have read poems that talk about two roads split in the wood and you hear about, an albatross around your neck, please read those poems. Literature will give you strength. It speaks from history and memory. Use it.
Thank you.
So I go to my friends. Like I have about 2 or 3 friends, and generally, like I would just talk to one of them, depending on where, what kind of issue I'm facing. But one thing that really helps me is my walks. Like if I'm feeling, like a negative emotion, just going for a walk, like a nice 2-3 kilometer walk, is something that really energizes me. So that's something that I do.
Madhavi, don't say golf.
I have to say that, okay, 30 seconds. It's usually I've always had 2 or 3 friends on speed dial. Not always women, men, women, always, and not all the same people all the time, different stages of life. And if those 3 don't suffice my this thing, then it's myself. And sometimes it is golf. I love to play golf by myself. And recently in the TiECON, when Sylvia said husband,
I did not
was
say
very
that.
No, when Sylvia said
She's
her
talking about
I
husband.
was quite impressed. I mean, I don't go to my husband. He's a nice guy. but I love him and all of that. But recently in the Thai CEO golf tournament, they left me high and dry. I played the 18 holes by myself because that was the 4 hours I had to myself, and I love being by myself.
Ravi,
Sometimes-
poor you. So,
Sorry.
Sudhini, for you, my answer is that I'm a Vipassak. So, for me, the meditation is the answer. I go into myself. Personal discovery is my answer. And I don't know if you heard my speech in the morning and also the poem now. And those are the moments, this inspires me to reflect on what it is. And what Sonal said, the literature is what helps you reflect. So, guys, thank you so much. You all been a fantastic audience. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I had
Thank you,
the
panel.
privilege of fantastic women leaders, and happy Women's Day tomorrow
Thank
in
you.
advance.
Women on the stage, please. I mean,
So, are you asking me to get off the stage?
let's put Murali in the middle, and then let's all have a picture. At least the speakers, Lekha, please come. The speaker will at least having all.
And also, Swapna, can we please request you to present the mementos as well? And please stay with us with the picture as well.
This is $1 million picture.
To just answer, I know that was for the panelists, but my self-reflection was that I have observed like, compared to the literature, and each one goes to friends, family, and everything. I have done that through all my life. This is my personal reflection. You self-reflect on yourself, the career journey over the path, and you try it for yourself. It could work for you. So that's my take.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you for the honor. Thank you. No, I tried my best. Okay. I need to do that. First me, yeah? Well, I have one more packet. Thank you.
I think one thing that came through was fearlessness. I also want to add that it's something you can teach yourself. You don't have to be born with it. It's something that I taught myself very slowly, very gradually, but fearlessness can be taught. And right after this, ladies and gentlemen, we'll start the very, very interesting portion of our evening, the startup pitches.